If John doesn't subscribe...
Welcome to the primordial forest of the Mesozoic. Here are some of the most gigantic and magnificent animals who ever lived. This giant we observe here in this jungle is Brachiosaurus, one of the largest animals to ever walk the earth. This astounding sauropod of the Jurassic leads his herd through the forest. With the 6 others in his clan, they browse from the treetops, eating several hundred pounds a day. Hello everyone, welcome back to Prehistoric Kingdom and Prehistoric Wildlands. This collab builds with a Jurassic and Prehistoric PC. This is episode 5, delayed a week, because I've been really busy and I just haven't had time to get around to this, unfortunately. But I actually haven't seen what Prehistoric PC built for the element of surprise for me, and behind me is what he built. We're going to check that out and then get into today's builds. Alright, here we have... okay, we have like a house for the Dinosaur. There's a roof over here. I know he built a Dinosaur habitat. Extended the path right here to accommodate a new area. He built out this river, which I think looks really nice. He connected this outside of Jurassic and I's section. So now, when you enter the park, you have his first episode. You're heading into the Wildlands. But then you can also head over here to his new building, which is kind of neat because, oh wow, that looks super nice. He has this very cool style, but it kind of doesn't match the tropical vibe over here. So it's like we're still a little bit outside, it's still controlled, which makes sense because it's a controlled climate building. These walls look super nice. I really love this facade here. It looks so much like a real building. We said we didn't want to get too industrial. Well, Jurassic did not agree with him. And so, but I think that's fine, especially here because we're still outside the natural wild park area, which is what we were saying, like this is like a national park type thing. I mean, it's in Tanzania, so it's not like an American natural park, but you know, it's preserving the animals still with safety. So here is the house for our Dinosaur. I don't see them. Hello. I like this habitat. I might want to put some lights in here though, because the ceiling feels very low. I think that would help brighten it up. I don't see the animals. Maybe it has something to do with them still being public test branch, but I am on the new update, so I don't know. The game has been really buggy recently. Oh, I love this view from here so far. That's going to look really nice once we have more of the park. What we're going to build today... I'll go ahead and start the speed build up, but I wanted to build a hotel. I know we said we're not going to do too many big buildings, but I feel like near the entrance, guests need some kind of lodge, because this is probably pretty far to travel for a lot of them. So I feel like they need somewhere to stay. First idea was to do like a classic American Appalachian kind of vibe with the building, with those big logs to support everything, which I think would have looked nice, but it doesn't fit the vibe. But yeah, I also wanted to get some elevation in for this build because I feel like that's something we haven't done too much. I'm actually really tempted to decorate this area, but I think I'll leave that to Jurassic. It's just kind of weird to leave it not fully decorated, but that's pretty far from where we're going to build, so I'll leave that be. Let's head over here now to where we're going to start our build. Now with my ramblings done, I'm going to talk about what I'm actually building on screen right now. Okay, so here we are. I'm starting this build. It's going to be an hour, so it's going to be pretty chaotic. So anyway, first thing I'm setting out is just this little path area to kind of create a crossroads so that our lodge won't occupy this whole path and someone else can expand the park more this way. So I'm creating a little bit of garden because obviously we don't want to fill this in with path, just flattening the terrain, filling in this weird space that I have left over with rocks. Pretty basic path design. I really designed my areas for guest view, as I've learned. They don't look too great from above. That's mostly due to my use of a lot of rock. So I'm creating here as a little sign. I actually do these a lot at the entrances to sections, as you'll see in some of my tours of other Prehistoric Kingdom builds that I've made that I might get around to making. But basically, yeah, I just like creating this little display signs that tell you where you're going, and it makes it really... They just look really neat, especially when you use the lights. I do think I made this section a little bit too bright. You'll see There's tons of green lights here, which lights do really set an atmosphere, but you don't want to over-contrast them. I feel like they should be a little more consistent, and this does really stand out in the park at night, which isn't great because it is supposed to be just another continuation of the path. But it's not too big of an issue, and it does look really good on this sign here. So yeah, what we're building today is the Brachiosaur Lodge, which the Brachiosaurus is kind of like the flagship dinosaur of this park, if there is one, because it's on the logo of the park that you saw in the first 2 episodes. And also, you know, it's by the lodge, so obviously it's going to be an important dinosaur. Right now, there's not really a way for most of the guests, I'm recording this, of course, after the build is done, there's not really a way for most of the guests who aren't staying in the lodge, which is only a small percentage, to be able to see the Brachiosaurus. But I did leave a space so somebody else can add that later. What I'm doing right now is some plants around the river and to sort of fill in the section. And when you're building, something really important is to create a sort of palette of plants and rocks and colors, the same way an artist uses paints and colors to create just, you have to have a plan without a plan. I mean, it's not like I plan what I'm going to build exactly. I know generally what I'm going to build, but I do have a plan for the look and feel. And I actually, much like with painting, even though I had an idea, I didn't actually end up with exactly that, even though I do think what I built does look really good in the end. So here I'm just creating a custom little fence to line this garden. Basically, yeah, I wanted to go for a more separated section for this area of the park. You have to really figure out what's the relationship between your park and nature, because that tells you everything about the park, and it can even tell you what's going to happen to the park. The same way in Jurassic Park, Ian Malcolm predicts its fall because it has really obvious issues. So yeah, just laying out this section here, and basically, yeah, placing this custom railing. This is another opportunity to introduce this new palette of plants, which you have a park palette. Like, we've used the papyrus a lot, and I think the arrowwood a good bit too. However, each section also has to have something unique so the park doesn't blur together into just an endless row and gives each animal its own due, as well as what you've built. So this is actually the longest I've ever spent on a single habitat in any game. I think it's debatably the best single habitat I've built in any game. I'm actually really happy with how this Brachiosaur habitat turned out. It wasn't exactly how I wanted it to. I don't know if I said in the intro, but I've never built anything with like a inspiration for what it's supposed to be like. You know, I know a lot of builders like to do that, base things around habitats and zoos. I just find that to be restrictive, and it's not like I would do that if I didn't have an idea for what to build, but thankfully I haven't run out of ideas yet for this park. So yeah, essentially, I was gonna actually base this around a hotel I stayed at while I was in Costa Rica, and mix that with the Jurassic Park scene where they're in the tree looking out of the Brachiosaur, because that's just such a beautiful view and it's so iconic. I wanted to create that with the long necks over the jungle at nighttime, and I think that would be an awesome hotel balcony view, which was the inspiration for this. I didn't end up basing the hotel too much around that one. It does still have dark wood as its main components, which I did use a ton of dark colors here, which makes it very unique from the other section of the park so far, especially Prehistoric PCs, because he uses a lot of light colors, which is super neat and makes it look modern. But even my last section, because that was like a central pinnacle of the park, it's like right when you walk into the Wildlands, what do you see? You see something bright. This is, as I said, supposed to be kind of mimicking a canyon, but also like the jungle, because as you'll see, I use a lot of rock walls, and that kind of blocks in the section, but also, you know you're in the jungle, so you know it goes on forever, but you can't see very far, so it feels dark, while also still being isolated. But the Brachiosaurs are different because they can look over the jungle and really see the true extent of the space, which is something really cool about Brachiosaurs and that scene from Jurassic Park. I do take a lot of inspiration from Jurassic Park and literally everything I build ever, because it is the best movie ever in my opinion, and it's just, you know, inspired really all of this. Like, Prehistoric Kingdom is its own game obviously, but like we would not have Prehistoric Kingdom if there was not Jurassic Park. I'm not saying there would never have been any sort of form of dinosaur zoos, but like it would be nothing like what it is. So here, this building I'm creating is kind of like a help desk for general guests, and also where the lodge, people who are staying in the lodge will get their tickets, not tickets, room keys and such. It's basically the lobby because we don't have a central hotel building. We have several small houses with just a couple rooms each that line the Brachiosaur jungle. So yeah, I'm creating a little desk here. This is quite a small building. I really like the look of a sort of jungle village where you have this modern architecture. I'm really trying to integrate with my section's modern architecture, but also it's natural. And I think the materials and the darker color really helps. And I do think I overall succeeded with this build in bringing that look. So yeah, it's kind of like a modern jungle village where you can just make out the buildings in the distance just sprawling throughout the jungle, but you can't really tell because you're going deeper into the jungle and terrain is, you know, sloping. And yeah, I just think that was a cool look. I'm not sure if I got it exactly how I wanted to, but overall turned out pretty nice. So yeah, as I was saying, this really long build, I recorded for I think 13 hours to build this, and then I cut out a lot of footage. I think I recorded for like 11 and a half hours, cut out a bunch of footage, and then sped it up. This is depending on where you are in the video. It's between 1000 and 1700% speed, which I think the 1700% speed is actually a little bit too fast, and it doesn't look, it looks, you know, really choppy with the frames, and it's hard to keep track. But I wanted this video to be under an hour because, you know, this series, every other episode has been short except my last one, which was 30 minutes. The others were like 15 minutes, and now I'm bringing an hour episode, which kind of made me aware that I'm probably taking up a lot of people's frame rates, and I don't know how good my fellow builders' PCs are, and we still have just started this series, so I'm gonna build something less complicated for the next view, but I felt like I needed to get a hotel down near the entrance, and a hotel was definitely something I wanted to do in this park, even though it is kind of like a natural reserve. As I said, I just had all these inspirations that I feel like I definitely needed some form of a lodge or hotel somewhere. I started this cascading river. Really, at first that was to fill space, and then I had the idea to build like hot springs, which I didn't end up doing, mostly because of space and time, but I think it would be very neat to do that later on in the park. Here, it kind of felt like I had a blank canvas, so I'm sort of sketching out the terrain, which is something pretty easy to do. I'm just creating these placeholder mountains because we are going to have mountains in the back of this habitat. We're kind of creating a forced view, like you're looking out over the jungle that the rest of the zoo will go through, and that you will explore in the morning because, you know, this is where you stay in your hotel. You wake up in the morning, look off into the distance. I think that's just such a cool idea. I feel like I'm building up this build a lot, but I do think it's pretty good, and if you've seen my other videos, I don't build up the rest of my builds that much. I do think my last Dilophosaurus build was decent, but anyways, yeah, the plants I'm using here are mostly for a tropical vibe, but I am using a lot of scrubland plants as well because they have some really cool palms that are very helpful, as well as wetland plants because we did say that this is a very wetlands area, and I think they have some really nice plants to fill up space. And I also use the bamboo because even though it's a part of the temperate plant set, bamboo is found in many different biomes. It fills up space super well without bringing in very bright colored temperate trees, and it's also used in zoos a lot, which is because it just grows so fast. So it's especially good for herbivore enclosures, I guess, because it'll regrow. But yeah, anyway, I'm just creating this first bridge over the river, which will lead to one hotel. We have 5 lodges here, so technically only 10 rooms, but don't think about it too much. Essentially, yeah, this first hotel is on the highest point of the hill, is actually the most expensive hotel because it's nearest to the food court, of course, but also you have the highest view. This is the only one where you can really look the brachiosaurs at eye level. The others are a little bit below, and also, as you'll see, this one has an additional cool view that the other lodges don't have. So the first thing I'm creating is this sort of framing that's going to face the rest of the habitat. This is where our windows are going to be, as you can see, 2-story. I usually don't build 2-story buildings in Prehistoric Kingdom. I think this might actually be the first time I've done so. But I think it turned out pretty decent, and of course a lot of stuff you can just duplicate to the floor below, which is neat. I did want to create a big glass pane here because I don't want the support structures there. And I did feel like this lodge was maybe slightly inspired by cabins I've stayed at where you have big views over all the nature, and it's really beautiful, super neat. So yeah, here I did a lot of rock work in here. Something I end up doing, which maybe isn't the best idea, but it is the easiest way to build it, is you'll see my process repeated throughout any of my Prehistoric Kingdom builds. I get down the big structures, then I detail the buildings and rocks at the same time. The very last thing that I build is always the foliage, mostly because it covers up your view from other stuff, is the main reason, and it's also just really easy because logically the rocks were there before those trees, so the trees go around the rocks and not around the buildings, but the buildings are cut out of the trees. Many of these trees are probably planted to create the feel that they want. What I'm building here is actually an elevator shaft because I didn't really have room for stairs to get to the second floor. So yeah, that's why I'm building this elevator. It's really easy to lose a sense of scale because at first I made those doors 4 meters tall, which doesn't make sense unless you're in like a skyscraper and with like, I don't know. Yeah. So I'm just creating this elevator shaft. This will be mostly blocked off by different buildings, but you'll see I use a lot of dark colors in this habitat, which I was afraid would look really monotonous and just everything is the same different shades of dark brown, dark gray, and black, but it turned out alright. And I think it's pretty easy to differentiate, and you're already in the jungle. The trees occupy most of your builds and so most of your view, so the buildings that are there do stand out pretty well. I didn't actually, because of the already linked to this episode, and because I couldn't get good screenshots because Steam was glitched, I was not able to do an extended showcase, but if you stay tuned for the next episode, Jurassic will react to my build and walk through it. That it will be probably next week. So, yeah, I feel like as far as large structures, I'm pretty much done until at least much later in the park. I'll have to see what everybody else builds. I have a few different ideas that I'll get around to. Maybe we'll be building for mammals next time, depending on what my fellow builders do. I'm actually really excited to see the next episodes, and here you can see what I mean with the frames being really jumpy because this section is on 1700% speed. So yeah, something I did with all these hotels is to integrate the rock faces because we are in the cliffside, like I said, because I overuse rock walls. So what I'm doing here, actually, I'll come back to that sentence, is I'm using these roof ridge caps, which are really nice pieces because, as you can see, I use them to basically basically line everything on the floors and any weird edges that you get because it just makes the whole thing look way more realistic, and it doesn't actually take that long if you use the 4x1, go into the modern section. The third one is the narrowest, and so it's just so useful for this, and it makes everything look more realistic in a convincing way. So yeah, just duplicating those onto the upper levels. I forgot what I was saying just a minute ago when I had to start talking about the... oh well. Elevator doors now is what I'm doing. I think I was talking about, yeah, rocks being part of the building. I'm using the rocks a lot, one, because their shapes are really easy to cover up weird spaces, and two, because symbiosis with nature, while also accepting that we can't simulate nature the way that Jurassic Park tries to fake it with those bright jungle colors. So yeah, inside the hotel rooms, I didn't go too detailed. There's not even, I forgot to build bathrooms in the hotel rooms. You're not really meant to tour those, you're meant to just look at the view. But I did create a separate section for the bedroom so you can look through. Whoa, that's a lot of jumps. Sorry about that. Because they actually have a pretty unique view. Just to fill in this floor space, just created a little planter garden. Because I did want some open space, and to be honest, this isn't meant to be a big building because, of course, this is just the room for a few people. So, yeah, I just wanted to fill a little bit of space there. As far as plants, I was talking about like 5 minutes ago when I had to start talking about something else. This is the nature of speed builds. Now I have something else to talk about. Okay, so for this lower section of the roof, I was going to use these Stone Age planks, which doesn't actually work because the roofs are always such weird shapes, because I always try to make my buildings not too blocky. I feel like they still are anyway, but I have to use really awkward shapes, and on most textures that overlapping creates that weird glitching whenever you move the camera. Thankfully, the arid Adobe clay can be changed to any color and is pretty neutral, as you can see here. And thankfully, it doesn't create that effect. So yeah, plants, as I was saying. I brought in those scrubland plants. I used the elephant grass a lot from the gardening sets. And... nah, I forgot anyway. I'll go back to that later. Anyway, this little balcony for the top floor room is actually... this is one reason the top floor rooms are more expensive. So this is the same path lining that I used earlier in the park and that Jurassic also used around his Pseudoceratops habitats. This little space here, I decided why not. I'm creating a little pavilion for the guests to sit at. Technically, even non-hotel guests could come here if they really wanted to view the brackies. And let's say you got food, let's say the food court was pretty full. You could get your food and come here. And in the morning, we actually have a restaurant in this section of the build. So I imagine that since there's not really many amenities in the hotel buildings, the guests would order their food from this building and they could even bring it to their hotel lobby. Maybe there's a pickup desk or something. And then, yeah, they can sit out here and eat it, or they could just go to the restaurant or the nearby food court. Should those restaurants be so close together? Maybe not, but I did want some kind of other building here. And it did feel convenient, because this is a little bit exclusive since we only have a few rooms. Even though this is, I imagine this isn't the most toured park, it's not Jurassic World where we have 20,000 guests every day. You're still going to be, this is going to be kind of exclusive. So what I'm doing here is I'm just creating a little bit of furniture to fill the hotel rooms. It is pretty empty overall, just a refrigerator and a sink here. Unfortunately, creating these objects on a realistic scale and the fact that I only have like 2 rooms means that there's a lot of empty space, which is kind of a neat look anyway, to have this open floor space. Gives you a better chance to see the trees, and, you know, then you get your money's worth. So there. Yeah, I built a kitchen, duplicate that onto the lower floor. Next, I'm building a couch. I actually put a couple couches, because I definitely wanted you to be able to sit and look at the brackies by your big window. So yeah, just, maybe I should put this on the Steam Workshop, even though it's really basic. You're not really supposed to, as I said, look at this in great detail. I literally just copied the table I used before in my last build, which I used those chairs and tables a lot. As you can see, partially for consistency, but really it was because I was limited on time, because I've built this in 2 days and I already delayed it a week. I wanted to make sure this video got done this weekend, because I kind of felt bad about delaying everybody else with that, but it's fine. Yeah, here I'm doing the bedroom. What is this? This is an Echo Dot Amazon thingy. I was building a lamp, and then I was like, you know what? Why not? This doesn't look like a lamp. Now it said Alexa. So yeah, here, surprisingly, we don't have furniture in the game. There's a lot of stuff we don't have in this game. Really, during these past few builds, I've realized just how early access this game is and how many more pieces we need. Which, really random, but Prehistoric Kingdom devs, if you're watching, please give us speakers so that we can put even our own sound files, and that would be awesome, but even just preset ambiances to set environment tones, that'd be so cool. As well as a bajillion other things that I want added to the game, because I think this is the coolest game ever. What I'm creating here is actually some blinds, because this hotel, as I said, has a unique view into the Dilo habitats, but for some privacy, because you can kind of see this into this room from the food court, which is kind of weird, so yeah, I'm just building some blinds that could be pulled down over these windows. And now I'm working on the balcony. Just built a little garden planter. Again, I did this a lot with our elephant grass. And, oh, something else I brought in were those pines. I think they're called, like, Norfolk pine or something. They're from the Scrubland set. I used them because they look really prehistoric. I didn't want to get, like, alpine pines, which sounds really weird to say, but, yeah. They look really prehistoric, so I used them a lot. Because this is the Prehistoric Wildlands. I know I keep saying that and going over the top with the title, but yeah, anyway, just a fire pit there. Putting in some lighting. I went for mostly yellow tones on the lighting. That was inspired by that hotel I stayed at because they had really cool yellow lights and that really lit up the paths but didn't let you see into the dense jungle, which was super neat. That hotel was actually right on the beach in Costa Rica, which was super cool. This obviously isn't on the beach, but nonetheless, super cool. So yeah, now I'm just creating this roof. I didn't want it to be totally just a flat roof though, so I elevated this one section over the shape of the bedroom because that shape was kind of unique and was already sticking over this roof pieces. And what did I do here? You'll never guess, it's a garden planter. I think that's just what I build entirely, which I'm not mad about. It's fun to build because we have a lot of plants in this game, but there's a billion other plants that I want. Please add weeping willows. That would be so cool. And like avocado trees would be awesome. And fig trees. Fig trees would be super cool, the hollowed out ones. Baobab trees. Anyway, I'm gonna not turn this into a wish list video. I just duplicated the hotel to right here. I cut out like an hour's worth of me struggling with the terrain. The terrain in this game is horrible. We should have flattened it before we started the build, but too late now, especially with the path. The path system really needed to rework. Prehistoric Kingdom devs, please do the same thing with the path you just did for the fences, because I got so mad at this path. Oh my gosh, it's the worst system. The one-way Jurassic World Evolution 2 is better than Prehistoric Kingdom. There's a couple ways it's better. Two, maybe. But yeah. Anyway, the paths, please fix them. Have it toggleable for them to follow terrain and flatten it or not, because wow, they're impossible to work with. And please add contour lines to the terrain. It's so annoying to not have those. So yeah. Anyways, back to the actual build that I'm actually building here on screen. You'll see I'm using this very light colored wood plank path, which really does go against what I said I was doing by building that section with the what I said. You know, darker colors. And yeah, that does contrast, but that's kind of the point, because as I said, the path is what's lit up, the jungle is what's dark, the rock walls are what's dark, the buildings are what's dark, but not the path. And the path leads the buildings, and the buildings stand out, so it's kind of, you know, that disymmetry. That's not the word, but you know what I mean. Here, I'm just building that restaurant with a restroom, because I'm pretty sure that's building code, you have to do that. And also, you know, there wasn't, forgot to build them in the hotel rooms, which logically, we'll pretend they're there. As I said, the hotel rooms have been simplified due to time existing in a linear way, in my experience most of the time. So yeah, anyway, I just want to get a little bit of interesting architecture on this restaurant here. Nothing too complex. This restaurant, actually, I finished really fast. I built this whole thing in like 20 minutes. So yeah, that was super easy. And I felt like maybe I was bringing in too many textures, but keeping the same color palette actually made it work pretty well, and I was happy with that. So yeah, here I put a Brachiosaur sign. Maybe that would have the name for the restaurant, but I didn't put it there. So yeah, here, this roof texture is actually the terracotta roof. I really want to build like an Italian restaurant in here with the terracotta roof somewhere, but obviously I didn't fit with this section. However, I do think once changing the color, the terracotta doesn't stand out too bad. It does stand out a little bit from the other buildings, but it's fine because, as you'll see, there's actually a window that looks out onto where there will be more of the park, so it's a little less isolated, and that way it brings more people in to see the food. Yeah, they have to eat that sometimes. So anyway, yeah, I just duplicated the hotel 3 more times. Some of them I'm deleting this little pavilion, mostly because it just didn't work where it was. And so yeah, I think 3 of them have pavilions. Doing a little bit of terrain work, as you can see, super rough right now. But we're going to fix that, and you know how we're going to fix it? With 1 billion rocks. Prehistoric Kingdom devs, more rocks, please, and randomized rotations on the one we have, because they take forever to rotate. So that would be like the most awesome thing ever, and I would, if you did that, and I would probably like never play other games again. So for those of you who like my Jurassic World Evolution 2 videos, make sure they don't hear that. Yeah, here we go. This is, yeah, just using these cladding rocks a lot. Duplicate those blinds because for some reason a little bit of them were missing, but it wouldn't let me grab them because the game is really finicky and there's a billion glitches on this new update. Like the weather menu, if you close the weather menu, it closes the game. It's really weird. So, and also when you have to open it to make it not rain all the time, even in Sandbox. So anyway, this is literally just like a mountain in the middle of the section, which at this point in the build I was really apprehensive about. It looked really standout-ish, but once the whole build was done and the cliff face was complete, it was fine. I do think I'm over-relying on rock walls, which looks nice for the habitats themselves, but probably not the best for the overall zoo. Yeah, how far? We're like halfway into this video. If you're still here, you're awesome. So, yeah, a little bit more path work. I use this rock terrain a lot. I did want a proper dirt terrain brush, which we do have dirt terrain brushes in the game, but they're all super light colored, which of course didn't work very well. It was just, yeah, this game is very early access, but I do still recommend it for anybody. It's definitely worth the price, even just to support the devs to make this, because it has the potential to be the best dinosaur game ever, and I think it already is debatably the best dinosaur game ever. Probably it is, in my opinion. Even though I haven't even built habitats for like half the species in the game before. So, actually, no, I have built habitats for half the species in the game. I have now, but I hadn't a week ago. You'll see in the video in a couple weeks. So yeah, just finishing up this cliff face as I have been doing for a while. I think there's like 1,000 rocks that I placed during this 13-hour builds. I like that we keep building more impressive things, a lot like Unity Park is doing. I've really enjoyed watching Unity Park because every time they try to build something more impressive than the last person, and I love like Legion's title on the last one that like he took 10 hours to build a habitat, which is insane for Jurassic World Evolution 2. Like this is Prehistoric Kingdom and it's a whole park section. It took me 13 hours. It's insane that he'd spent 10 hours on one habitat. So yeah, I just carried that fencing over, which is really important to create that separation. Here you can see a view of the hotels from afar, and they do look really repetitive, obviously, because they're the same building. But I think it's fine once the trees are integrated, and of course, as I said, we're not striving to pretend that we are nature. We are like acknowledging that we're separate, but still respectful of the power of nature and the animals and blah blah blah. As I've said before, I'm going to talk about what I'm actually building. So yeah, I do think the paths look really good with the terrain change. Actually, they do look a little wonky in a couple places due to the terrain tools in this game needing to be fixed badly, please. At this point in the build, I was getting pretty lazy and going quick with the rocks. I hadn't been building for like 5 hours straight at this point. But, yeah, I think it's fine. It's surprising how well I can use the same 12 rocks, rotating them on one axis without them looking repetitive. I don't even remember what I've talked about yet. I was about to talk about how I used the sand colors on the rocks and made the sand black, which created this unique texture, but I think I already said that at the beginning of the build, or did I just plan to say that and not say it? I don't know. I'm not going to watch through this whole thing again to see if I did that, but if you're watching this somehow still, go back and tell me if I already said that about using the sand texture on the rock, because you can do cool stuff with the sand texture and it doesn't have to look like sand. It's just create some, makes the texture look more realistic on the rocks. Placing a couple vending machines here. I just placed all those lampposts and just putting the railing on this bridge and then it will be the build aside from the foliage and the Brachiosaur habitat, and the rest of it will be done. The build is done, aside from the part I haven't built yet. So anyway, while building this, I was actually listening to a bunch of Caesar Creates videos. I'm sure most of you know Caesar Creates. Here you can see a little bit of view of what we built so far. It looks pretty sparse without the foliage. But yeah, it's got a good vibe. I like it how enclosed it feels while also still feeling plenty of space, which is the intention. As I said already, like 5 times, it's hard to fill an hour of narration because also I'm doing this in one take, so it's like natural talking, except you're not talking to anybody and your thoughts have to actually make sense and have a logical flow that without repeating yourself. It's kind of weird. So yeah, anyway, here, montage of placing trees for like 5 minutes. Anyway, I was watching a bunch of Caesar videos, his Elm Hill City Zoo, Planet Zoo builds. I don't play Planet Zoo, but still, it's really inspiring for this game and Evolution 2 and stuff because, you know, they're just still fun to watch. Objectively, they're cool. He has like 105 episodes in that series. They're like 30 or 40 minutes each, usually. And I have watched almost all of that series in the past, like, 4 weeks, I think. Maybe 3. Basically, I heard about him through Unity Park, and then a couple weeks after his build, I started watching those. And I really enjoyed his build for Unity Park. Yesterday for you guys, today for me. So, yeah, as you can see, I'm using the same palette of foliage I've been using the whole time. A lot of different plants, lots of variety. Jungles have that. Trying to create different levels of understory while still leaving viewpoints. I spent some time that I cut out actually just looking at the shapes of the branches on these different trees. My throat's starting to hurt after talking for 37 minutes straight. If you're still here, as I've said before, that's awesome because the average view duration of my video is like 1.5 minutes, which is kind of sad. But that's fine. Now that I've filled that past 5 seconds with silence, yeah, I like that Unity Park. I guess that was more like 15 seconds. I really liked that Unity Park builds. Some trees I'm using here a lot are these swamp beeches, which don't really make sense, but they look just like the jungle trees in Jurassic Park because they're wrapped in those vines. I really want the fig trees because they're closer, and the ones in Costa Rica that I've seen are really awesome. I'm creating this canyon with a bunch of ferns, like the Canyon of Terror from, of course, Walking with Dinosaurs, the greatest dinosaur TV show ever. So yeah, back to the thing that I was saying earlier that now I'm frantically trying to remember. About park builds. I don't remember. I'm sorry. How many thought lines have I left unfinished here? I'm like the skeleton crew, except I don't have 4 friends to help. And it's a preset, and I don't make funny jokes on video. I'm really not selling this video, am I? I am gonna sell you the build though, because the build's awesome. I actually like it, which is why I like Prehistoric Kingdom, because even though a lot of people complain about it being slow, I see what they mean. I'm gonna prove you wrong in my video that I've mentioned like multiple times too, that I've alluded to. Foreshadowing is a literary device. Anyway, now that I'm done copying other people's funny jokes, I'm gonna talk about the thing. Oh my gosh, what was I just saying? Wow, it literally takes like 40 minutes for me to lose track of my own thoughts. That's kind of concerning. Anyway, yeah. What was I saying? Oh my gosh, why can I not remember? Okay. Trees. You know what? Back to trees. We're placing a lot of trees. I do think I did a really good job with the foliage palette here. And I think it's fine that they're very tropical, which is a little bit different from the rest of the park, because it's so isolated. Sorry if this build is really good. I'm gonna use some 2024 slang here for the kids. You know how the kids talk these days. I cooked on this build, as some people might say it, which sounds really unnatural to me to say that. But anyway, yeah. Sorry if this build is like really good, and you don't have to do a Unity Park and like struggle to build something better. Just build what you want, because this build is about the fun of
working with other people. So, yeah, that sounds really, like, egotistical, doesn't it? I'll not say that again. Anyway, heading through what we've already built, you can see I left this spot for a path off to the left. And here we go through this ridiculously bright green lodge sign. We have our ticket stand right here, which I really like how small this building is. At first I thought it was kind of too bland and blocky, but I think it's fine, and it's like nestled into the river. So you got restaurant on our left, and I just really like the flow of this path. It's super natural. Oh my gosh, the restaurant is bright. Wow, I used too many lights in here. I might fix that. Yeah, that's insultingly bright. I think it looks fine from the path. The path, though. So it's alright. Oh my gosh, my throat hurts after talking for that long. Who would guess that humans aren't made to talk at full speed? Well, this isn't full speed. This is like... Oh well. Talk words for like 40 minutes straight. Yeah, I might pause this and go get some water, but... No, I'm not. We're talking all the way through this video. I'm gonna be like coughing every 5 seconds by the end. Anyway, here you can see what I'm gonna go for this. Look, very inspired, as I said, by Jurassic Park. So yeah, the bottom floor doesn't have a great view for this bedroom area, but the top floor does, because we get a view right into the Dilophosaurus habitat, which is awesome, because, yeah. Anyways, with that done, yeah, you can get a little bit more view of the section. If you want a proper tour of this, as I've said, I think already, or did I just plan to say that again? Stay tuned for next week, Jurassic's episode 6 of this series. I'm hoping we can get at least 15 episodes out of this series. Don't know how this is gonna go. I've never crashed my PC with Prehistoric Kingdom. No idea how much I can build, because I've never built anything that's put strain on it. So we'll see how it turns out. I do think that this is a very realistic looking section, which is something I'm proud of. Yeah, now I'm gonna try to say something original that I haven't already said 5 times in the last 42 minutes of green on the screen and brown. Anyway, this view in particular looks super neat. So now we're finally working on the actual Brachiosaurus habitat that you guys saw at the beginning of this, where I tried and failed to do a Morgan Freeman impression. I actually can usually do a decent Morgan Freeman impression, but that was really bad. So, anyways, yeah, I didn't know what to do with this river, so I'm building a little bit of a tunnel, Jurassic Park style concrete tunnel, like it will feed into maybe the power plants. Maybe the park could be managed through here. Actually, that doesn't make sense because of the direction it's flowing, because it wouldn't be. I don't know. Yeah, maybe they could manage it with boats. Who knows? And I actually had some issues with the terrain, of course. It's easier in the habitats, of course. Yeah. Working on creating that tropical terrain with the mountains, Isla Nublar terrain, which was actually kind of challenging to do without using up too much space, because I still wanted the Brachies to have room to move around. They do need a fair bit of space, I feel like, because we have like 6 or 7 of them, and they're humongous animals. Like, I knew they were big, but I didn't even realize how gigantic they were compared to what we built, because I felt like we built pretty large structures, and I just put the Brachies in, and they tower over the buildings. They're way taller than I thought they were. Even from the top floor of the hotel, the Brachiosaurus heads are like 5 feet above you. It's awesome. Which is actually even better. Here you can see I was talking about that dirt texture, how bright and orange that is. You don't really have a better dirt texture, so I ended up basically covering that up with rocks. I started placing rocks, but I realized that was going to be like a rabbit hole, so I didn't place too many rocks. Kept it pretty simplified. Yeah, let me know in the comments anything you want me to cover. I am going to do a Chaos Theory video next week, probably, if I have time and feel like it. I know I said I will, and I have a lot to say about this show, but I also don't like just talking about opinions for a while, so I'm going to also talk about the lore aspects of the show, because, you know, I kind of got to live up to my namesake. So that's going to be what the video's a little more focused on.
These rocks do look really interruptive, which is the word now. But I think it's fine once I add in the trees. I use those swamp beaches a lot, which we'll get to in just a minute when I actually start placing the trees. Yeah, my throat really hurts. Okay, I don't know how I'm going to talk. How was there 13 more minutes of this? There's no way. This build is nearly done, I'm sure. Oh well. Anyways, after I did this ground texture, I did a little bit of like the walking path to where the brachiosaurs will walk more, and I started placing this jungle floor piece, like 700 of them, before I realized that, hey, we have a tree brush in the game and you can just place these. But it was fine. So here I loaded in a brachie just because I wanted to test their walkable areas kind of thing. See, so it turns out they can't walk through individually placed trees. But as I was learning in just a minute, if you use the tree brush, they're fine. So yeah, here I just started decorating the habitat, really using these tall trees, the capocs, I don't know what you call them, from the tropical set, as well as those swamp beaches, of course. I use some individually placeable to create just ridiculously tall ones for the brachies to move around through, but mostly I use the tree brush to make sure that they can walk. So yeah, it does make sense to me for the brachies to be living in the jungle because obviously they're gigantic. So anyways, here's just some screenshots of the brachies. Again, you'll get a better view next week when Jurassic tours this build. Thank you guys for watching that Brachiosaurus habitat build. I think it turned out super well. I don't have extended cinematics because like 3 of you are still here anyways. And it's... yeah, it would have taken forever, and as I said, Steam, the screenshot thing wasn't working, and the normal camera motion is really weird in Prehistoric Kingdom. Here, little walkthrough, as I said, better view next week. I do like how this path turned out, trees overshadowing. Here you can see what I mean with the wonky terrain, but I don't think it's too bad. You may say, why is the screen so bright? It's because I turned up the brightness because OBS was being weird and recording Prehistoric Kingdom really darkly, and the best I could do was to turn up the brightness. So sorry if that looks really weird. This area in particular looks really nice. Here you can see this is exactly the view I was going for. It looks so nice. Imagine like you're in your hotel after a day of going through the dinosaur park, or you just arrived and this is your view, and you can also see the dilos. So fabulous. I love it. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. All the things I already said. Tune in next week. Subscribe to Jurassic and Prehistoric PC, and here goes the outro.